Welcome back to In the Spotlight with Jeanne and Kathleen. And on the phone with us today is Andy John Kalkunas. He is a restaurant owner in the suburbs of the Cook County suburbs, and he's a friend as well. And we had Andy John on quite a few times for a segment, Zoom segments at that time, to discuss what was happening in his business amidst the pandemic. Now, what's interesting is we've just now, of course, like we introduced before, we've had full reopening apparently in Chicagoland and in the state of Illinois. But we know, looking at the unemployment statistics and actually looking at how difficult it is to get workers back to the job because of this plussed up unemployment insurance that they're still receiving from the Biden administration, we know that it's still very perilous out there for restaurant owners. Many of them are having to put signs on their front door saying, hey, just be patient with us as we were here to serve you, but it may take a little bit longer due to employment issues. I find that fascinating, Andy John, that when we still have 7.1% unemployment in the state of Illinois, and we know there's workers out there that are just staying at home as the government continues to be their employer. So how is this affecting you? How's business going? It's so great to hear from you. We want an update.
Well, first of all, hello, and thank you for having me back. I think this is our third or fourth time together. So thank you for making this a priority. It's great to be with you.
Good to talk to you. Andy John, my brother-in-law, as you know, I think I've mentioned to you, is a owner. He's not an owner. He's an operating partner for a restaurant, a larger restaurant group in Oak Brook. And they've had to actually, he's working his butt off, but he's had to offer bonuses, signing bonuses for servers, bartenders, and hosts, cooks, line cooks, all positions, signing bonuses, which I was a waitress in college. That's unheard of. Like when you signed on, you got an apron. That was our signing bonus. So
that's right.
Are you doing anything like that, or is there anything? How is it going?
The reality is, here we are recovering from the darkest hour in hospitality's history. Mm-hmm. And people have what they call Biden bucks. Everyone's got money in their pocket. Everyone's revved up, ready to go. It's just like I've been predicting for some time. There's going to be a surge in the hospitality industry like the roaring 20s after the Spanish flu. I mean, it's going to be the best year in hospitality in terms of demand. Mm-hmm. It's going to come back like gangbusters. The sad reality is we have no chance of meeting that demand with the labor issues that we're running into. I haven't interviewed anyone in 6 months.
Wow.
So I'm in the second largest tax revenue generator in the state of Illinois. I'm in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Yeah.
And so imagine I'm literally on Restaurant Row in Schaumburg. Mm-hmm. Nobody's walking in. I used to have 3 to 6 drop-in applicants every day. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had one in 6 months. And the people that we've hired are Nicole's brother. I begged him to come work as a busser. My friend's son, I begged him to come as a dishwasher. Yeah. And by the way, they've been tremendous assets. Mm-hmm. So the few people that are working right now are just tremendous. And thankfully, my staff has been so good to me. We've been good to each other. We've gotten through this darkness together, and we've never been closer. The restaurant industry is about teamwork, about family, especially family-owned businesses like ours, like never before. So when people say support local, you're really supporting people that are sticking together. And so right now, we have pretty much been fortunate because we've remained intact. The challenge we're running into now, for example, Saturday, I have a few people. One of them wasn't feeling great. No COVID related, not feeling great, just not feeling great. So of course I said, stay home.
Isn't it funny though? You always have to make that caveat. Oh, it's not COVID though.
Oh yeah.
Right? Anytime. Yeah. Oh, I don't feel great, but it's not COVID. Right. Oh, jeez. Go ahead.
That was one. The other one's at a wedding out of town. So before you know it, I have X amount of servers on a Saturday. So I have 7 or 8 servers on a Saturday. I need 16 for the demand. I'm nowhere near where I need to be. So through natural attrition, I've lost more people on my staff to Florida, Tennessee, and Arizona than I have to anything else. So the sad reality is there's not enough demand. There's demand coming in the door, but there's not enough staff to support that. So I'm actually reducing the reservations that I'm taking. I'm actually lowering the revenue that I'm generating, because I want to do a good job with the people. And this is absolutely fact-based. You can see the open table reservations on the back end. I lower it. Instead of 20 reservations every 15 minutes, which is perfectly normal for me, 25, I'm at 10 and 12 every 15 minutes. So I'm half of what I want to do in terms of the spigot being open. I'm taking half of the reservation flow that I should be taking to make the numbers I need to make to pay the mortgage and the ridiculous tax burden that I have on my shoulders. That's what I'm up against.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because front page Wall Street Journal today, U.S. workers quit jobs at highest rate since 2000. And it says more U.S. workers are quitting their jobs than at any time in the last 2 decades, signaling optimism among many professionals, while also adding to the struggle companies face trying to keep up with the economic recovery. The wave of resignations marks a sharp turn from the darkest days of the pandemic, when workers craved job security while weathering a national health and economic crisis. In April, the share of U.S. workers leaving jobs was 2.7% among the Labor Department, a jump from 1.6% a year earlier to the highest level since 2000. Many of these people, of course, it goes on to say, are gravitating to other environments, like you mentioned, maybe for them personally, other environments that respect their money and respect their freedom, like Florida, which is unlike Illinois, who the Democrats who run the state here respect none of that. And so they're moving for those reasons. They're also jumping jobs, though, just because people are looking for people are looking for anybody who will work. So if they've got any skills at all, they're trying to move on. And I think that just makes it more difficult for employers like you.
Yeah.
There's going to be a calamity. You're going to pay $16 for a house glass of wine by the end of this year. Because right now, dishwashers, first of all, we take good care of our staff. We just do. The staff, we're at the top of the food chain. We're in the white tablecloth fine dining environment. So people seek out our place first because they realize they're probably going to make the most money for the least amount of hours worked. So you got to work a double at Cheesecake Factory instead of working a 4 to 6 hour shift at Chicago Prime. It's just the same money. I mean, so you don't have to kill yourself to make the same money here with us as you do at some of these other large chain restaurants. So when people are getting hired on our staff, they're getting hired at a high pay scale immediately. And they're expecting raises, and they're getting them. And so what's going to end up happening, now we have a commodities issue. Our meat prices have literally doubled. So our meat and our fish, not all fish, but some of our fish, our prices have just doubled, literally tripled. You've seen price increases in commodities. So now eventually we're absorbing that for a minute, and then eventually you're saying, okay, menu prices are changing. And so now you have increased labor costs, increased cost of goods. Well, where does this equate? And we're already coming out of this a debt situation where we're trying to recover. And now we have a really, 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 really entitled, and I hate to use that word, but that's the reality. The people that are coming out, they want service. They've been home for a while. They come out and they're saying, hey, I came out to spend my money. I want to get taken care of. I'm sick of cooking at home. I'm sick of making a mess. And I want somebody to take care of me for once. And all of a sudden, add that all together, we're talking about a massive explosion in the marketplace. And if you're not ready in our industry, it's an explosion.
Yeah. Well, listen, I was just looking up those inflation prices. You're looking January. This is food inflation prices, okay? And I'm looking at a qualified, the U.S. inflation calculator. You can Google it all you want. But I mean, if you look, January up 3.8%, then February up another 3.6%, and then March up 3.5%, and then 2.4% and 2.2%. So you've got not just food inflation, you've got fuel inflation. And let's face it, your employees have to pay more to fill up their car to even get to work as well. This all is just a feeding frenzy of price inflation.
Mm-hmm. Well, on top of
I'm not
that,
sure I can afford to go to Chicago Prime as much as I like.
Well, on top of that, Andy, you're coming off of a legislative session where it looks like the governor's going to sign a number of new taxes and regulations that are going to hurt job creation. Chamber of Commerce said that the budget punishes Illinois employers with higher taxes to balance bloated state spending. How will that affect your ability to plan for the next year?
The sad thing about legislation is we're in the business sector, in the small business sector, we're the last ones. The sushi guy. I said this in one of our last segments. The sushi guy, my dad, the Greek immigrant restaurant guy. We're so busy running our shops, we don't have time to lobby. And we don't have time to call our local rep and say, hey, I heard about House Bill 6420. We don't have time for that. And so by the time we hear about it, it's too late. By the time we realize the impact of it, it's too late. And then we're being unfairly targeted as though we're doing something wrong. Like business is bad in Illinois. We're bad people. That's the feeling you get running a shop.
Yeah, they know how to run your business better. And
yes, they always think that they're the smartest people in the room, even though they've never, ran a lemonade stand.
Right.
Well, it's just a bizarre feeling. There's a posturing, there's a tone, there's a subterranean undercurrent of you're taking advantage of the little guy. And I'm saying to myself, what are you talking about? Every time they're short money, we're giving out that $100 or $200 to help them make their car payment. And when they need, we're the ones doing everything. Our heart is with our staff. These people, we spend more time with the people at work than we do with our families in this business. Don't tell me we're not in love with these people.
Right.
So it's unbelievable how we're treated as business owners in the state of Illinois. It's just not fair. It's criminal the way business owners are treated in Illinois. It's just not right.
It isn't right. And, it's going to come to a halt at some point. But let's look at this. Okay. So ostensibly, the pandemic payments to small businesses were there. And I've talked to a local restaurant owner as well. He feels like he was made whole. That they basically said, you made X amount in 2019. We're going to make sure, tell us your revenues in 2020, and we will make sure that they're the same as 2019. So for the most part, you're probably made whole. However, now you're competing for labor. You're forced with higher inflationary costs because of the feeding frenzy at the federal government with the money. You're faced with higher demand because people have been cooped up, and you've got growing concerns about maintaining your business in the state of Illinois with property taxes still escalating. The schools always ask for more, by the way. And so you coming out of the pandemic, panic at first, kind of made whole, still perilous though for your business model in Illinois.
Right. So so you're 100% right. They made restaurant industry, hospitality industry whole. The federal government did, the CARES Act. So before Trump left office, he gave a gift to the hospitality industry. And what he did was included, Congress passed it. So it's locked in. It sunsets at the end of 2022. The restaurant, it's called the restaurant corporate expense account. What is it? The tax. It's 100% tax deductible for corporate meals. So that hasn't happened in 30 years. It's a major contribution. That leans towards dining rooms. It's not breakfast or lunch places, but it does impact lunch quite a bit. It really impacts dining rooms. So the federal government actually stepped in and made a big impact towards the hospitality industry, and they made that pivot accurately and I think logically. I'll tell you, I don't know who's going to pay for it because they're just giving money out willy-nilly. It's unbelievable how much money they're throwing around. It's unbelievable. If they're giving me this kind of money, can you imagine what they're giving Gibson's, Let Us Entertain You, Levy Restaurants, and all these national Darden?
Yeah, look, I was never a lockdown fan to begin with, but I feel like there's so many of us that are we weren't in that niche where we're the beneficiaries of a lot of federal government largesse. And we just kept doing what we had to do, working every day,
Right.
And I just feel like we're paying for all of this. And
Oh,
not
definitely.
that I don't think that you guys should be absolutely made whole. I don't think you should have ever been shut
Right.
down. I don't think it should
Right.
ever happen. And I just, okay, great,
At
but
what
it's going to stop
expense,
at
right?
what expense is this going to,
That's the issue. At what expense? So yeah, they're throwing money around.
Yeah.
There's really, there's really very basic parameters by which you're required to prove. You just got to keep people employed. People are gaming the system. Now I got these dollars sitting in different bank accounts. I'm worried about spending it because all I read about is people going to jail for misusing the funds.
Right,
So I'm
yeah.
paranoid. All I'm doing is paying payroll and mortgage payments and saying, okay, I'm not going to spend $1 because what I need to do is build an outdoor space that's bigger than what I've got, because the future in Illinois, after what we've just been through, is outdoor. You got to do bigger outdoor space.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because you spent a lot of money to put up tents, to buy propane heaters, to buy those
I know.
propane heaters.
Imagine
$50,000.
relying on outdoor
So,
space in Illinois with our
that's-
weather.
Yeah.
So what do you do with all
Right.
that?
Right. $50,000 I spent on rentals,
Yes.
tent, propane, AstroTurf, lighting, extension cords, name it. It was a nightmare. So I don't have the luxury of making those types of annual expenditures. I need to have permanent fixtures in place. So if I can use these dollars to do that, and some of these dollars you can, but God forbid you misappropriate and spend 1 cent in the wrong bucket, I'm paranoid. So guess what? I'm in paralysis now because I'm afraid. I don't want to make the mistake. So now some people are saying, look, the government gave it to us. They're not going to put us all in jail. Spend it. People are buying Mercedes. They don't know what to do. They're like, hey, my business is
calling that
good.
a company car?
Yeah, they're doing all sorts of things. It's just bananas what's happening right now. So there's mass confusion. There's very little direction. And you'll say, yeah, well, you got to go to the website. Which website? This SBA website? The IEDL? I mean, there's so many different places to get confused. And then tell that to my dad, who's a Greek immigrant. You go to the website, George. Now you got to pay an attorney $15,000 to decipher all this information. Forget about it.
Yeah.
So all you do is apply for every loan, every grant possible, and use it. But God forbid you use the wrong money in the wrong bucket, you're in big trouble. So you got to be very judicious in how you spend these dollars, and it's a very dangerous time. So it's very perilous, and you're not over. And all the money that we still owe, the interest that we owe the banks, for example, we still have to pay that back. So we still owe the banks money. Nobody's whole. All the deferments that the banks gave all these restaurants.
Yes.
The restaurants still owe that. So everyone that thinks the restaurants still made it, slow down on that. Nobody's made it. They're still 6 months behind or a year behind in deferments. Well, there's interest that compounds on the back end of that. So everyone thinks, well, you're still open. Well, wait a minute. No. Yeah, I'm still open because they haven't foreclosed yet. Okay. So people don't understand the process, and it's not their fault. It's not their obligation to understand, but don't misunderstand the fact that people are open.
Yeah, but they need to understand, Andy John. Let's be clear here. They need to understand that the lockdowns didn't solve anything. The evidence is clear. It's all in now. We know Fauci lied about this, about that, you name it. We know that lockdown states were, no more or less susceptible to the virus than open states. We know that you should have protected the most vulnerable, and that's where the emphasis should have been. We know that masks didn't work. I mean,
we know that
social distancing,
did tank
obviously,
the economy.
that works, and we could have accommodated that.
Right.
But the complete shutdown of the economy, it was such a farce. But, you're planning, at least in Illinois, it sounds like you're planning that they could do this again to you, which is really a sad statement about the leadership in this state at this point. So
I have more guests tell me about their plans to leave than tell me about their plans to stay. I'm telling you that as an absolute fact. Everyone is planning. And I'm telling you, there's 3 places, everyone, It's Florida, it's Tennessee, it's Arizona.
We could have probably said it along with you.
I mean, there's
Texas
3 places. And now
comes up a lot.
Texas.
Yeah,
Now
Texas comes up a lot too.
It's unbelievable.
It's terrible. Okay, well, we got to let you go. You've got a busy business
Got
to
a
run.
lunch to
You have been so informative. We are so appreciative of your insight into to the real world of what the pandemic's wrought on individual business owners, and we cannot thank you enough for coming on our In the Spotlight podcast.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for the time and attention to this very, very important issue.
You're welcome.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks.